Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. How should a couple handle differing levels of comfort with sexual acts? When we understand how to navigate this really difficult situation and difficult conversation and actually get on the same page with our spouse about comfort levels with different sexual acts, we're actually going to open ourselves up to being more comfortable in the future. If we actually try to push past something that feels uncomfortable to us, we're going to be taking a few steps back in our comfort level. This is what we're going to dig into on this week's episode. Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, the sex and intimacy podcast for Catholic women. My name is Ellen Holloway, and I am a Catholic speaker and coach who specializes in sex and marital intimacy, and I am on a mission to help you actually enjoy and desire good, holy sex with your spouse. Today, let me start by setting the scene with an example. We have a husband and wife who've been married for several years. They've never tried oral stimulation. And the husband would like to try oral stimulation of his wife's vulva area. And the woman is not comfortable with that. So let me tell you what this couple should not do in this situation. They should not have the man orally stimulate his wife's vulva. What they should do is take a step back, have a conversation about it, and wait on that particular idea. So how should a couple handle this situation and this conversation? So the first thing that a couple needs to do if there is a differing level of comfort with a sexual act that has been suggested is, first and foremost, the couple needs to confirm that this is in fact a illicit act. We're not going to get into that in today's episode. There are tons of episodes in the catalog about licit and illicit acts and how to figure out if an act is licit or illicit. So definitely just go back and take a look at the titles of different episodes. So with the knowledge that an act is fully permissible, like in the example above of the man orally stimulating the woman's vulva during foreplay as part of that sexual act, what needs to happen here? So first off, the woman really needs to advocate for herself here and explain that this is not something that she is comfortable with. And the couple needs to default to the less comfortable spouse. Always. And here's why. Defaulting to the less comfortable spouse is going to do two things. One, it's going to ensure that this act is in fact a loving act that the couple is coming to freely and totally. If there is a level of discomfort present, then that's not a total gift of self. And there may even be some feeling of coercion in it. And so the woman might not be coming freely in this situation if the couple decides to go ahead with oral stimulation. One of the biggest arguments for kind of like pushing through something that you're uncomfortable with is that maybe if you just kind of get used to it, you'll get more comfortable with it. That's not how it works in sex. And here's why. Sex is extremely vulnerable. It is the most vulnerable that you can get with another human being here on earth. You're completely naked, both physically and you're spiritually naked because you are coming together and one person is entering inside of the other person, right? The man is inside of the woman. This is an extremely vulnerable act. And when we insert discomfort into that vulnerable act, it just causes further separation instead of openness. So you can imagine, a flower that instead of opening up and being open to the sun and allowing the sun's rays to fill the flower and warm it and feed it, right? The flower is instead closing up and not allowing those sun rays to come and hit it. That is what is happening if we're trying to push past an uncomfortable act that's happening in sex. And so ultimately, and this is the second thing that saying no and defaulting to the less comfortable spouse is going to do, it's going to help that spouse that has lower comfort become more comfortable in the future. Because in the situation that we said before, that the man wanted to orally stimulate the woman's vulva and the woman did not, if she advocates for herself and she says no, and maybe she explains why, or maybe she doesn't explain why, that's not necessary, but she says her no, and that is respected by her husband, that creates greater trust, deeper intimacy, and the ability to become more comfortable in the future. So by me saying all of this, if there's an act like this example of oral stimulation that is uncomfortable from one of the spouses, saying no doesn't necessarily mean putting it off the table forever. In Gregory Popcak's book, Holy Sex, he actually has a great example of a couple that is uncomfortable with the position known as doggy style, for lack of a better word for that position. And he does a really great explanation of kind of showing how this couple talked about it, recognized that there was a discomfort with one of the spouses with that position, and it was fully and totally respected. And actually, because of that full and total respect of the discomfort, later on in the relationship, the person who was uncomfortable with that position actually came around to being comfortable with that position. But it was because she was never coerced and never pushed into doing something she was uncomfortable with. So this is why it is so important. So how do we navigate this conversation, this situation? So I see that there's kind of 3 different situations where this could come up, that an uncomfortable situation kind of comes up. So the first one is in the moment, right? And let's say you, as the wife, your husband starts doing something that you're uncomfortable with. The best thing you can do in this situation is to say something or stop it with your body. And it can be as simple as not today. You don't need to explain. This is actually not the moment that you need to explain because you're in the middle of the act. Explaining it is going to take a deeper conversation. It's going to take openness and willingness to listen. And that's like not where you guys are at this particular moment because you're in the middle of having sex. So it's just a not today. And you can even say, let's talk about it after. Can you do this instead? A great thing to do here is not today and then just make a suggestion of something else, right? So in the situation that we had before, maybe the man just starts moving toward her vulva area and she says, not today. Can we kiss for a little bit longer right now, right? Something very, very simple. The next situation where this could come up is prior to sex. Maybe the husband suggests, hey, can I orally stimulate you during sex today? And the wife in this situation is not comfortable with that. She needs to say no. You need to say no if there is something uncomfortable that is suggested. And this is actually a great time to explain why, because you're not in the moment. So this is a great time to say, no, I'm not at all comfortable with that. And can I tell you why? And then the other half of it is that it's really important that you listen to your spouse's reason why they want to do that. Because they have a reason. And that reason might be perfectly valid. And hearing that reason might actually open you up to kind of understanding why an act like that might even possibly be comfortable for you in the future. And again, this is not saying you have to say yes. If you're uncomfortable with it, you need to say no. But listening to your spouse's why, that's going to open up those lines of communication, open up that intimacy, and really ultimately just help you guys grow closer together. And then the third situation, after sex, if something that was done during sex that you didn't like or you weren't comfortable with and you weren't able to stop it in the moment, you have to say something. You have to say something. If something happened during sex that you were uncomfortable with, you have to speak up about it. You are only hurting yourself and your sexual relationship if you stay silent here. It is as simple as, hey, hun, when you did this, it made me feel this. I don't really like it, and can we not do that again? That's it. That's all it has to be. It does not need to be this long beating around the bush conversation. And actually, in fact, it's going to be a lot better if you're just super clear about it. And I recommend, really as close to the act as you can, maybe right after cleanup, just, hey, can we talk about something real quick? There was something that happened during sex that we've never done before, and it made me feel uncomfortable. When you did this, it made me feel this. I didn't really like it. Can we not do it anymore? Right? Or maybe it's something that's been going on for a while and you're listening to the episode and you're like, oh, I'm really uncomfortable with that. And that happens like every other time we have sex and I've never said anything. That's okay. It's okay, but you need to say something now. As soon as you can, you need to sit down with your husband and say, hey, we've done this before. It didn't feel loving to me, or it made me feel uncomfortable, or I didn't like how it felt, right? Use your words. You don't have to use mine. And just very clearly, I didn't like it, and can we not do that anymore? This is your husband that we're talking about. He loves you. He wants to support you. He wants sex to be a loving relationship. He does, right? And if there's something that you're uncomfortable with that he has done, or maybe that you've been doing for a long time that you've never mentioned it before, the best and most loving thing that you can do is say, I actually don't like doing that. And can we not do that anymore? So to close out this episode, you have to say something. I know I've said it like 50 times already in this short episode, but you have to say something. Pushing through something that you are uncomfortable with is not going to help your sexual relationship at all. It is going to help your marriage, and it's going to help your overall comfortability with sex if you actually don't do whatever that is, right? In the example that we've been using today, we were talking about oral stimulation of the vulva area. And the last thing, I just want to add this in one more time, is that I know I've kind of talked a little bit about if you say no now, it might be something that you're more comfortable with in the future. But I say might, right? Saying no might mean that you truly never do that. Or it might mean that maybe in a year you try it, or in 6 months, or in 10 years, right? Saying no is just stating your comfortability at this point and opening up those lines of communication. If your spouse suggests something that you are uncomfortable with, you never, ever have to do that. But maybe you'll want to at some point in the future, and that is also okay. It's all about sharing what is actually going on inside your mind, inside your heart, sharing that discomfort that's going on, and just making sure that you guys are on the same page. Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you listen to podcasts on a platform that gives you the option to rate or review, we'd love for you to do that because it helps us spread the word about the podcast. If you ever have questions, comments, or episode topic ideas, please reach out to us. We love to hear from you. You can reach out on Instagram or send us an email. Our email is in the show notes. Until next time.